Today, we're diving into one of the most transformative laws in American history, the Homestead Act of 1862. This piece of legislation opened up millions of acres of land for settlement and helped shape the American West as we know it. But the journey from promise to prosperity wasn't as simple as it might seem. So let's explore the hopes, hardships, and legacies of the pioneers who dared to take the plunge. The origins of the Homestead Act. The story of the Homestead Act begins during one of the most turbulent times in American history, the Civil War. With the country divided, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Homestead Act into law on May 20th, 1862. The idea? To encourage Western migration and settlement by offering free land to anyone willing to work it. This was a chance for ordinary people, immigrants, freed slaves, and even women to own property and build a future. Think about that for a second. 270 million acres, about 10% of all the land in the United States, was opened up for settlement. That's an area roughly the size of Texas and California combined. And all someone had to do was file a claim, pay a small fee, and meet some basic requirements. The appeal of free land. So why was the Homestead Act such a big deal? At the time, the promise of free land was a dream come true for many people. After all, the idea of owning land had long been associated with wealth and independence. And for those living in crowded eastern cities, where land was expensive and opportunities were few, the chance to own 160 acres in the West felt like hitting the jackpot. Imagine being a young couple or an immigrant family arriving in America with nothing but a hope for a better life. Now you have this opportunity, your own land where you can grow crops, raise a family, and build a future. It's no wonder people flocked to the land offices to stake their claim. The requirements and the risks. But it wasn't just a matter of signing some papers and getting rich overnight. The government had strict rules. Homesteaders had to be the head of a household or at least 21 years old, live on the land for 5 years, build a home, and farm the land. Only then would they receive the full title to the land. And here's the kicker. The land you were given wasn't exactly prime real estate. Much of it was remote, barren, and difficult to farm. For many, life on the frontier was a struggle from day one. You had to build your home, often from sod, plow tough, unforgiving soil, and contend with harsh weather, isolation, and even attacks from wildlife, or in some cases, hostile encounters with Native Americans who were being displaced from their ancestral lands. The hardships of life on the frontier. The hardships didn't stop at getting the land. Many homesteaders quickly realized that surviving on the plains was far more difficult than they'd imagined. Winters were brutal, with howling winds and snowstorms that could bury a home in minutes. Summers brought droughts, dust storms, and swarms of locusts that could devour crops in hours. Imagine trying to grow crops with primitive tools on land that was never meant to be farmed. You're miles away from your nearest neighbor, you have no running water, no electricity, and the railroad is still years away from connecting you to the rest of the country. Every day was a fight for survival. Many homesteaders gave up, unable to prove up the land as required. Some sold their claims or abandoned them altogether. But for those who stayed, the rewards were worth it. The Homestead Act allowed hundreds of thousands of families to establish roots, and over time, these settlements grew into thriving communities. The impact on Native American communities. But we can't talk about the Homestead Act without acknowledging its impact on Native American communities. As settlers moved into these new lands, indigenous tribes were often forcibly removed or pushed onto reservations. The act accelerated the loss of native lands, leading to violent conflicts and the near destruction of many cultures. While the Homestead Act brought opportunities for many, it also brought tragedy for others. It's important to remember that the expansion of the American frontier came at a great cost to the indigenous peoples who had lived there for centuries. The legacy of the Homestead Act. The legacy of the Homestead Act is still visible today. It played a crucial role in settling the American West and helped shape the agricultural landscape of states like Nebraska, Kansas, and the Dakotas. By 1900, over 80 million acres had been claimed under the act, and it laid the foundation for the farming communities that continue to feed the nation. Today, when we think about the American dream, the idea of owning land and building something from nothing is still powerful. The Homestead Act gave people the chance to carve out their own slice of that dream. And while not everyone succeeded, those who did helped shape the country we live in today. The Homestead Act wasn't just about land. It was about opportunity, hope, and resilience. It reminds us that the American West was built not just by the strong, but by the determined. By those willing to face unimaginable challenges to create a better future for themselves and their families. Thanks for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Until next time, keep exploring.